The space industry right now is a time of innovation, of new ideas, and of new businesses. Many, many new businesses. And one of the challenges of being in an industry, our industry, with those new businesses, is it can be very difficult to distinguish the visionary from the crazy. You hear so first of all, space businesses are often evaluated and sold based on the coolness criterion. And we all buy into the coolness criterion. That's why we're in this business. We hear success stories much more often than we hear stories of failure, but business failure is much more common than business success. And so in this environment, I wanted to offer you some thoughts that I have developed over a couple of decades of working on space businesses about how to evaluate those businesses, because you're being asked to invest. You're being asked to invest your time and your interest and your energy and your career in these companies. So I'm going to offer 2 tips and 3 bullshit indicators that I think you will find helpful in evaluating space businesses. So, tip 1, know your numbers. I'm now going to tell you everything you need to know about the space economy in under 2 minutes. If you're thinking about, you're looking at a venture, you're looking at a space business, and you're trying, first put it in context. And there are 3 kinds of businesses in the space economy. We often hear new space versus old space or other space or conventional space. Let me try out a different construct that I think you'll find useful. So one is enterprise space. Those are big global companies, the satellite companies here at Satellite 2016, that are focused on business and consumer customers. They're very well-established products, they're high margin, they're global or at least national in scope, and those are the majority of the money makers in the space industry. Relatively high margins of a space economy that's maybe $330 billion, about 250 of it is enterprise space. So that's one kind of business. Then there's contractor space. Those are companies, aerospace and defense companies, that make their money primarily focusing on the government as a customer. They're global, their products are also very well understood, often leaning toward the hardware. And their global revenues are on the order of, let's say, $80 billion in space. That's global government space budgets. Half of that, by the way, is the US, and half of that, again, more than half of that, is US military and defense spending. So that's another kind of company, and that gives you a sense of the differences between, if you can put them in a venture in context, between their customers, their business dynamics, their expectations, their markets. And then the third kind of company that we're seeing many more of now is what I'll call venture space. And those are startup companies, often funded by external investors who may be space advocates or simply financiers trying to make the most money that they can. Startup companies are often smaller, their products and services are much less well-defined, their markets are often brand new markets, their risk is at a much higher level, both in terms of the tolerance of investors and the potential for business success. And they generally, at this point, and there are a lot of them, and they generally at this point in time are not making money. Now, an exception, let's look at SpaceX, which certainly started as a venture business and is now making money, and where? In the enterprise side of the market, launching satellites, and in the contractor side of the market, providing services for NASA. So it's important to place the business that you're looking at in that context. So that's step 1, know your numbers. Step 2, ask. When you're evaluating a business, a space business, you're essentially doing a mini business case analysis as part of that evaluation. And I can't usefully tell you what to ask, because every single person in this room knows exactly what to ask. Who are the customers? What's the revenue projection? What are the risks? What's the competition? What's the growth plan? How do people make money? You know what questions to ask. What I want to take a moment to do is firm your resolve in asking. Over a couple of decades of doing this kind of work, I have seen more than once a note that suggests that if you're asking those kinds of questions, you're not bought into the vision. And I will tell you, asking those questions is reasonable and appropriate and useful, and if you get pushback, that should make you ask harder. So those are the 2 general tips. And now I want to talk about what I have found to be the 3 space business specific bullshit indicators that I think will be useful to you as well. So one is the "it's only rocket science" meme. So that is the, if we've solved all the, space is hard, and if we've solved all the technical problems, the business problems will be easy. The business success will follow. And that sort of manifests in leadership of a venture that comes with only government experience. For example, they're space experts, but they've been space experts and very important space experts only in government. Or only technical experience, they're space experts, world-leading space experts, but have no business experience. Or the third really interesting variant is the big idea, small outcome experience. So you have people who have done some business activity, but the massive marketing around the idea and the actual outcome in terms of revenue and results are really disproportionate. And those are three very useful indicators that maybe you want to question the capability of the management of a business to lead it to success. The second indicator is mystery money, and there are two variants of that. So mystery money one is, where's the investment going to come from? And there's this Nigerian prince model. They're just going to throw money at this because it's space and it's cool, and they don't really expect that much back, and that's worth questioning. And the other one is the imaginary customer, right? The revenue's going to come from all of these customers. And here's the model that you get, the picture you get painted of those customers. There's a massive market out there. If we only get 1% of that market, we'll have a massive market too. That's ridiculous. Why would you ever get 1% of that market? I can say there's a massive market of iPhone users, and here's my space flip phone that I've designed. I'm not going to get 1% of the market. Another related version of that is the Starbucks iPhone story. This is going to be huge. People don't know they want it yet, and it's going to be so big you can't model it. And if you don't buy into this, again, you're not buying into the vision, you're not really understanding, you're just kind of a plodding slow goer that you want actual analysis about who our customers are going to be. Another indicator. And finally, a critical bullshit indicator in the space business is that a business case closes because it relies on one of the magical space business principles. One, massively high launch rate. If a business case closes with a launch rate of 12 launches a day, that's because all the massive non-recurring costs that you've incurred get applied over such a large base that they go away, and you take credit for insanely huge economies of scale that aren't realistically going to get realized. If the business case doesn't close at a reasonable launch rate, it's not very interesting that it closes at a massive launch rate. Two, massive investment up front. If only we have $5 to $10 billion right now, we'll develop a product or a service that will be so competitive and so capable it will dominate anything in the market. That's probably true. But often if you look at a terrestrial competitor and you throw $5 to $10 billion at that in the next few years, you'll get the same outcome more cheaply and more easily. Another magic business case principle is you've got to completely transform the space architecture. This was, for a long time, the problem with satellite servicing concepts. The 2B vision, the future vision, was a great one. Imagine if satellites were designed and could be easily serviced. But the as-is and the 2B were so far apart that you could not envision, there was not a reasonable pathway to get there. So no matter how good the vision is, the 2B is, if you can't get there from the as-is, that's going to kill the business. There's also ignoring all historical cost experience. There's a sense in space, and we're hearing this a lot now, that it is so expensive partly because it's been so procedurally driven, and that there are opportunities to reduce those costs, and there certainly are. The reality is the opportunities to reduce those costs are often spoken of in orders of magnitude, but the reality of it is often in, percentages. So instead of 1/10 of the cost, it's a 10% reduction. So you need to apply a realism factor there. And finally, ignoring terrestrial competition is one of the absolute strongest magical space business case notes, and I'll point to a historical example that you all know, which was Iridium. So there's a $5 billion investment in a global satellite phone that became available at the same time that terrestrial mobile phones were becoming widely available, and those terrestrial phones were cheaper, easier, and you could use them from inside buildings. $5 billion investors lost. So that's my input to you to help you as you think about space businesses and space ventures, and you make your decisions about where to put your time and energy. And I think that it's really important because this not only helps you make your decisions, but it can help the venture improve by identifying and retiring risk. So I will leave you with the thought that critical thinking and calling bullshit where you see it is good for the space industry, and it's good for you. Thank you.